Hello, good evening. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. We continue to follow the developing story out of the Middle East tonight. The U.S. and Israel and the strikes against Iran. The damage, immense. In the air, B-1 bombers, which can carry 75,000 pounds of bombs, striking deep inside Iran, taking out Iran's vast network of ballistic missiles. And in the water, Central Command revealing the U.S. military has now wiped out Iran's entire fleet of 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. And tonight, the administration vowing that right now, this is just the beginning.
The hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now.
So far, no boots on the ground, though the administration today did not rule that out entirely. Outside of Iran, Israel and Hezbollah trading fire. Qatar shooting down Iranian bombers as explosions are heard across the Gulf from Dubai to Abu Dhabi and Doha. American F-15 jets seen falling out of the sky in Kuwait in what's being described as a friendly fire incident. And tonight, the ultimate sacrifice. The U.S. confirming 6 American service members have been killed in the operation so far, and warning more are likely. The commander-in-chief saying today the fighting could last weeks.
Right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
Kelly Meyer over at the White House tonight with us, following the president. Retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett here in moments. But first to our Robert Sherman on the ground in the Middle East, Tel Aviv tonight. And Robert, I was just watching you. Sirens in Tel Aviv moments ago. What's the situation there now?
Hey there, Blake. Well, it remains a very tense environment here around the region, with dangers being ever present for civilians, U.S. troops that are spread out around the Middle East alike. The consummate example of that being the news tonight of now 6 U.S. service members who have been killed in action here in Operation Epic Fury. That number went up after the remains of 2 more service members were recovered from a strike site here over the weekend. Much of the danger comes from the fact that Iran's retaliatory strikes have been indiscriminate. Hundreds of missiles and drones have violated the airspace of countless Gulf state countries that are not even party to this conflict that is existing here. As a result, we saw Qatar taking some of the firmest stances and actions when it comes to defense, shooting down a pair of Iranian jets. The airspace is where it has gotten so dangerous, and that is why you have seen U.S. and Israeli forces focusing so intently on destroying Iranian ballistic missile launchers, as well as their storage stockpiles, to hit them before they reach the airspace above the Persian Gulf. With Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying you can expect the operations to intensify, and they won't stop until the objectives are attained.
We set the terms of this war from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing, nobody else's.
Here in Israel, the new concern tonight, Hezbollah carrying out strikes on Israel. The Israelis say that they intend to hit Lebanon back. They've already been pounding the suburbs of Beirut in southern Lebanon and say they're prepared for a multi-front campaign. Blake?
Robert Sherman live for us once again in the Middle East tonight. Robert, back to you as the news warrants. But first over to Kelly Meyer live at the White House now. And Kelly, we saw President Trump for the first time today on camera, at least in person, since the strike over the weekend at a Medal of Honor ceremony today.
Yeah, that's right. The president, for the first time today, speaking in person about his decision to strike Iran, adding that the large-scale combat mission isn't over yet and that he'll do whatever it takes to reach their objectives, which, above all, he says is to stop Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people.
And over at the Pentagon, the secretary and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs briefing reporters in detail on the operation thus far. I was inside for that and got to press both of them on how long this may go on for and how will they know when their objectives may be reached.
We're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we are very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives.
The two not ruling out U.S. boots on the ground and saying they expect to take additional losses. Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live at 1600 for us. Kelly, thank you. With us now, retired General Mark Kimmett, former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs, with us live tonight here in studio. General, nice to see you in person on obviously what is a consequential moment for the country in the Middle East. We both were watching Secretary of State Marco Rubio up on Capitol Hill just a little while ago, and he said the hardest hits are yet to come. What do you think we are going to see here in the next, call it 24 to 48 hours or so?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to understand how the military thinks. They develop target lists of different types of targets: leadership targets, infrastructure targets, obviously ballistic missiles. We have not heard anything about strikes on their remaining nuclear facilities.
Right.
We have not heard about strikes on ground forces. They've got a 1 million-man army, and they've got the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps as well. I've heard that there's talk about bringing in additional aircraft into the region. Sounds a lot like they may be going against troop concentrations, troop billets, so on and so forth.
Yeah, because we heard from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, say today that more troops are headed to the region. Here was the commander-in-chief earlier today about the objectives. He outlined 4 different objectives.
Destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
Just heard you talk about sort of the tiers that the military goes through. Where do you think we are right now as it relates to those 4 objectives that the president outlined?
Well, the policy of the United States ever since we discovered the nuclear program inside of Iran, had been 3 primary objectives: their nuclear program, ballistic missile program, and proxies. This is the first time I've heard that the Navy is, and that makes sense with all the large ships that we have inside the Persian Gulf. So I'm glad we're having them visit the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Obviously, I don't think we have persuaded them to stop their nuclear program. I think we're making a large dent on their ballistic missile program. We haven't really done much about the proxies. Israel did most of that after October.
So how's that going to work going forward? Because we saw the scene in Lebanon, for example, overnight. Israel taking out the chief intelligence, the leader of the intelligence arm there in Lebanon. And I hear the president talk about needing to take out the proxies. It's one thing to go after Iran. How successful can we be of taking out all the other different, sort of arms around the globe that are attached to Iran?
It's going to be pretty tough. You take a look at them in sequence, just who we know very, very well. The Houthis down in Yemen, we've been fighting them for quite some time, haven't really been successful. Hamas, we got them bottled up in Gaza. They're in there, but they're not finished. Hezbollah, we're mowing the lawn. Big reduction in the size of Hezbollah after October 7th, starting to grow back. And we haven't even talked about the Hashid inside of Iraq, the Iranian-backed militias there. That's going to be the toughest part. The only way we're going to end that proxy network is by cutting off the support from Iran.
We saw the friendly fire incident of the jets that were, thankfully, as we know of it, nothing to the pilots are safe and sound. But I want to show you, or at least show our audience here, sort of where our troops are stationed across the Middle East. When you look at Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE. General, you're talking about somewhere in the area of 40,000 U.S. personnel. And as we just talked about, there's the likelihood of more getting into the area. What is the main risk this evening to those troops, to our U.S. military in theater right now?
Look, I've been to every one of those bases,
Okay.
and the fact remains the thing that you're most concerned about are ballistic missiles or drones getting through the defensive perimeters of the bases that we have there. Those bases are fixed on the ground. Yes, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine are in an advanced force protection position, but nonetheless, they are at risk. We've already seen places such as Bahrain get hit.
Right.
We've not seen this before. Our air defense is great, but our air defense is not perfect. So for our troops on the ground, that's the #1 threat. On the water, we still have aircraft carriers, and you can only imagine what would happen if an aircraft carrier was hit by one of those drones or ballistic missiles. Those are where I see the threats.
Okay. Hopefully not, of course. We got to leave it there, though. General Mark Kimmett, nice to see you in person, sir.
Thanks for having me.
coming on in. Great to hear your perspective and context. All right. Joining me now, Republican Congresswoman Sherry Biggs of South Carolina. Speaking of context, Lieutenant Colonel in the Air National Guard, where she served multiple deployments in the Middle East, supporting the war in Afghanistan. She also serves on the House Foreign Affairs and Homeland Security Committees. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us tonight. I heard President Trump today talk about possibly 4 to 5 weeks of this mission there across Iran and across the Middle East. How comfortable are you, if that is indeed the case, with it letting it play out that long?
Well, thank you so much for having me this evening. You know, we will be briefed tomorrow, and I expect to get more information, but I have to trust our leadership. Our commander-in-chief is making tough decisions, but he is putting America first. I listened to Secretary of War Hegseth today and General Kane, and I'm very confident that they have planned and thought this out down to the final details, and I trust their decisions. And I would just like to say we are mourning the sacrifice of those heroes that we lost, and my heart goes out to their families, and I fully support our troops. And I think that's what we should be focused on right now, giving them the resources and capability to carry out this mission successfully and get back home as quickly as possible.
I hear you. I hear you as a member of Congress and being briefed, and those are sort of the processes that take place in Washington. But I outlined some of your experience. You were a medical crew on 5 combat missions, 3 combat support missions. So as you watch this tonight, NewsNation video inside Tehran, for example, and as you see what's playing out, and we learn that 6 members have been killed in action, what was your experience in the region, and how are you thinking about this tonight?
Well, these people that we're dealing with, they are terrorists. They're not rational people, and I mean there are risks. And as a member of the military, we know that when we sign on the line, and I don't think any mission like this is to be taken lightly. So the quicker that we can accomplish the task at hand and get back home, the better. But this is imperative for the safety of our citizens.
Senator Mark Warner was just briefed. You talked about a briefing. He said, as a Democrat, one of the top Democrats in the Senate, and I hear you on trust, that you trust the administration. The senator from the Democratic side of the aisle said that there was not an imminent threat to the United States. Why do you believe that we are getting all of the information straightforward this time around?
Well, you look at President Trump's record. He has been very forthcoming. He puts it out there. He says things whether people like it or not. He's very honest, and he carries out what he says he's going to do. He keeps his promises, and I just feel like he has information to feel like that there is a threat, and he intends to neutralize the threat. And we have targeted action to accomplish, and that's our goals. They've laid that out plainly today on their briefings, and I feel confident that we will accomplish this mission.
All right, I'll leave it there with you, Sherry Biggs, Republican South Carolina. As I mentioned, the service as well, with her perspective tonight, here tonight with us on the Hill. By the way, the Iranian regime fired more than 1,300 projectiles at 11 countries across the Middle East in the first 48 hours alone. Well, celebrations in the streets of Tehran and across the world tonight, while others fill the streets in opposition. An Iranian American with family still there joins us here tonight. Plus, for the first time since their mother went missing, the Guthrie family faces the public in an emotional moment outside Nancy Guthrie's home. And for the first time in decades, we are seeing the testimony of those two right there on their ties in the Epstein case.
I've already told you this, I'll tell again. I never saw anybody do anything wrong.
I'm Blake Burman. Our coverage continues here on News Nation. Other side of the break. I'll see you then. Across the world tonight, people flooding city streets over the past few days, cheering the fall of Iran's leader and expressing hopes for the country's future. The Iranian regime has been in power for nearly 5 decades and has long been infamous for oppressing its own citizens. In just the past few months, thousands of Iranian citizens killed as the regime cracked down on protesters across that country. But after the weekend's attacks, President Trump now urging the Iranian people to take back their government. Joining us now, Moj Madera, co-founder of the Iranian Diaspora Collective, who has family inside of Iran. Moj, thanks for being with us this evening as you watch what's unfolding there in the Middle East. First off, how's your family doing? What have you heard from family and friends?
Well, thanks for asking. I think this is an incredibly sad and complicated time for any Iranian around the world. We're all thinking of our family and our communities. We are unable to reach them. Obviously, it is terrifying to see what is going on. And at the same time, it has been terrifying over the past few years, over the past few decades. But more importantly, ever since this massacre, I think there has been a real unhinged fear within the public, given that they saw that the government killed over 35,000 people. And so in this moment, we're praying for an end to this war, strategic strike as soon as possible. But that really depends on how quickly this regime can be toppled.
How long do you think that takes? How do you see it playing out? We keep hearing from the president and administration officials about the desire to see that happen. How does that happen and when?
So I think we have to really start to understand that millions of people came out on the streets to protest for democracy and freedom and for regime change. What we need to do is systematic decapitation of surveillance systems so that they can come out in safety. We need to make sure that they have low altitude ground coverage so that they can be protected while they do come out to overtake their own government. We need to find ways to support them with resources, Starlink, internet, arms, so that they can take arms, because
are you able to get through? Speaking
Iraq
of internet and Starlink, are you able to actually contact folks there?
Yes, we have. We were strategically, sort of for years now, been investing in getting, supporting people to get Starlinks. And so we have family, all of our family has a Starlink, friends have a Starlink. And so we've been in contact almost every day, a couple times a day throughout the day, and are getting pictures and videos. Clearly, everyone's staying inside, waiting for the moment that the regime change sort of call to action comes from the Crown Prince and from Reza Pahlavi. I think they're really waiting to see, is this government, is the United States government going to support regime change, or are they going to put reformists like, Larry Johnny and Rouhani in place, which would be a complete disaster for the Iranian people?
As it relates to sort of the potential U.S. government involvement, here was the Secretary of State Marco Rubio earlier today.
We would love to see this regime be replaced. While we would love to see a new regime, the bottom line is no matter who governs that country a year from now, they're not going to have these ballistic missiles and they're not going to have these drones to threaten us.
So he said, he kept saying we'd love to see them be replaced, but he didn't take the next step of saying we're going to be the ones to do it. So do you think that they are going...
The Iranian people...
Yeah, do you think that they're going far enough?
The Iranian people are The Iranian people are going to be the ones who do it. What we need, and we're saying very clearly, decapitate the rest of the leadership. You know, we're talking about Laranjani, Rouhani, like these people who've stood in the way of progress and have been part of the oppressive regime. Please get rid of this surveillance so people can come outside. You've got Bastille checkpoints all over the country right now, stopping people, interrogating people, putting people still in prison. We have to find a way to get people back online, get them resourced. And frankly, we need to continue to eliminate this regime. And so until that's done, I think it will be next to impossible for the Iranian people. But best believe, the Iranian people do not want to be saved by Americans, although they're grateful to American troops and allies. We all are. But most importantly, we want the dignity of being able to self-determine this moment ourselves.
Okay.
We want to get rid of this regime. And we have the Crown Prince, who has an incredible plan that we want to have him come to the country and lead that transition for us.
I hear you, Moj. All the best to your family. I hope they stay safe. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank
Moj
you, and
Madara.
thanks to the American troops who have put their lives on the front line to support the Iranian people and the entire world, frankly.
Here. Moj, thank you. Still to come tonight. A shooting in Texas, likely fueled by the attack on Iran. Is this incident isolated, or are there more threats to the homeland? What News Nation is hearing tonight. Plus, we're getting our first look at Bill and Hillary Clinton's depositions before Congress over their ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Those stories and more. Bottom of the hour to come. Top stories into our newsroom tonight. The very latest in and out of Iran when we return. Bottom of the hour, some of the top stories that we're following right now, 6:30 here in Washington, and it's 1:30 in parts across the Middle East. Live look, Beirut, Lebanon. And the reason why we are showing you that, it seems like there's a sort of a trail of smoke there, is we are now learning that the Israeli Air Force is targeting, and there you go with images. The Israeli Air Force is targeting Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon. Remember, one of the things that President Trump had talked about today when he talked about the 4 different objectives was to get at the Iranian proxies. The United States has been striking inside Iran, and it is Israel who is striking on Hezbollah. Live in the Middle East tonight, just part of the scene there. Earlier today, back here in Washington, the administration briefed top congressional leaders on the strikes, I should say. Ahead of the meeting, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had this to say.
The objective of this mission is to make sure they don't have these weapons that can threaten us and our allies in the region. That's why we're doing what we're doing now. And while we would love to see a new regime, the bottom line is no matter who governs that country a year from now, they're not going to have these ballistic missiles and they're not going to have these drones to threaten us.
All right, so that was from the administration's perspective. This from the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, after the briefing.
When we are talking about putting American soldiers in harm's way, when we have American casualties and expectations of more, there needs to be the proof of an imminent threat to American interest.
And Warner went on to say he believes that was not the case. Earlier today, President Trump warned that the quote-unquote big wave against Iran may be yet to come. The commander-in-chief would also not rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran if necessary. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the briefing left him with more questions than answers. Tuesday, the administration will brief all congressional members as the ongoing strikes in Iran continue. Coming into our newsroom tonight, new videos released today showing former President Bill Clinton and the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the hot seat, testifying for the House Oversight Committee on the Epstein files investigation. Now, neither Clinton has been accused of wrongdoing in the probe, but they both testified under subpoena last week. Our Joe Kay getting his hands on the videos and what's in them. Joe?
So, Blake, there was a lot there. The committee has promised releasing the entirety of the depositions of both Bill and Hillary Clinton. We're talking about hours and hours of video. It was really interesting to dig in. They weren't just asked about Epstein, by the way. There was questions about UFOs, questions about Pizzagate in some cases. But when it came back to Epstein, the fundamental questions: were they involved? What did they know? This is what President Clinton said, actually, when he was asked about President Trump's potential connections. Take a listen here.
The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein.
That statement is what appears to have prompted some Republicans to say President Trump was exonerated. This is what Secretary Hillary Clinton said when asked about her potential involvement, and he ties it all to Epstein here.
I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices.
Now, Blake, one of the more interesting points, I thought, they asked Secretary Clinton about allegations that Epstein could be a spy. Chairman Comer asked that question, and she responded not by dismissing it, by saying, I don't know. And he said, well, if you were us, what would you do next to investigate? And she said, you've looked at the CIA, I'd get those documents. She said, I would also go to the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and subpoena whatever you can from them. So it seemed like she was actually helping the committee, answering their questions and giving them suggestions about where to go next.
Joe Kay, live for us tonight, Capitol Hallways. Joe, thank you. Well, for the first time since Nancy Guthrie went missing, her daughters and son-in-law visited the memorial outside her Tucson, Arizona home. The NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie, her sister Annie, and Annie's husband arrived arm in arm, taking a look at the well-wishes that have been placed there. They laid yellow flowers and a handwritten card at the memorial that says in part, though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. The moment comes as the search for the 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie enters its second month now. Well, still to come tonight, the FBI sounding the alarm about the threat of homegrown terror after a deadly shooting in Austin, Texas. The suspect wearing a Property of Allah shirt. Plus, new indications tonight that Iran's Navy is wiped out. But the Secretary of State saying the hardest hits have yet to come, where the operation goes from here ahead. And as we head back into the studio tonight, we keep our eyes on Beirut in Lebanon, the Israeli Air Force striking there, and then, of course, inside Iran. 1,250 targets, the United States military tells us, as the strikes are ongoing. And we return.
I'm NewsNation's White House correspondent, Libby Dean.
He's got a lot of questions.
I do have a lot of questions, and that's because our viewers expect answers. And here at NewsNation, that responsibility is met with showing all sides of the stories and answering the questions that they have.
6:40 here on the East Coast, 1:40 in the morning, Beirut, Lebanon. Live look right now as our coverage continues here on NewsNation. We are learning that the Israeli Air Force is striking now against Hezbollah targets there in Beirut. And we are also learning this evening that in Kuwait, there are new missiles and drones over Kuwait. Just some of what we are seeing in the Middle East tonight, as the U.S. military also tells us that they have targeted so far at least more than 1,200 targets inside Iran. We heard from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, say at this point, the reason why they went forward was to get after the ballistic missiles that were essentially operating as a shield for Iran's nuclear program. President Trump saying today that this is an operation that could last weeks. It is night 3 in the Middle East as our coverage continues here on the Hill. Back here at home, 2 people are dead and at least 14 others wounded after a shooting in Austin, Texas. That shooting now being investigated as a possible terrorist attack in response to the U.S. strikes on Iran.
We are working in tandem with the FBI, conducting numerous interviews and gathering evidence. If you can imagine, we have over 150 witnesses.
This as major cities in the U.S. and across the globe are on high alert this evening, on the lookout for possible attacks, responding to the operations taking place abroad. Joining us in moments, Nathan Sales, State Department's former ambassador at large and coordinator for counterterrorism. But first to our Xavier Walton, live in Austin. Xavier.
Blake, investigators are still trying to figure out why did this suspect carry out this shooting rampage? What was the motive? Right now, they're going through hours of surveillance video, tracking his moves leading up to the shooting. We just learned that there's also a Ring camera video of the suspect leaving what appears to be an apartment. NewsNation also just obtaining new cell phone video from across the street from where we're standing just before shots rang out.
The cops are out chasing him right now, trying to figure out.
And that video was taken from exactly where I am standing some 36 hours ago. As a result of the shooting, authorities today identifying 2 of the victims that died, both college students, 21-year-old Savitha Shawn, a University of Texas student here in Austin, and 19-year-old Ryder Harrington, a Texas Tech student. Police also saying late this afternoon, 3 victims remain in critical condition, and tragically, one of those 3 is going to be taken off life support later today. As for the suspect, authorities say the shooter, 53-year-old Indagna Daiga, was wearing a hoodie with the words "Property of Allah" on the front underneath. He was wearing a shirt with the Iranian flag on it, which is why authorities believe this mass shooting could have been an act of terror. During the press conference today, the chief of police said that Daiga purchased both the rifle and pistol that were used in the shooting legally back in 2017. Authorities also said the suspect was not on their radar. Blake, there is body camera footage from the officer involved in this fatal shooting. Police chief saying they're going to release it later on in the week. Still, though, they're trying to pinpoint an exact motive and why this shooting took place, Blake.
Xavier Walton, live for us, Texas tonight. Xavier, thank you. With me again, Nathan Sales, former State Department Ambassador at Large, Coordinator for Counterterrorism. Nice to see you, sir.
Great to be here.
Kristi Noem, the, of course, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, last year during the 12 days war between Israel and Iran said this, and then I want to pick it up with you on the other side.
We've seen some from overseas and some that have been here, maybe gone overseas for a short period of time, become radicalized and come back, or individuals that are right here in the United States. So we have to watch for all of it.
Is that what happened in Austin, essentially?
That's what we've got to find out. I think there's 2 categories of threats that we need to be very, very concerned about. First of all, Iran-backed terrorists who've been trained or funded or provided weapons by the Islamic Republic who might have infiltrated through open borders here in the United States. That's one group. The second group is people who have no formal ties to Iran but are sympathetic to it. They don't like what the United States and Israel are doing to eliminate the Iranian missile program and nuclear program, and so they've decided to take matters into their own hands. It looks like Texas might be an example of that latter category, and that's really, really hard to detect and stop.
So when you talk about detecting and stopping, take me behind the scenes, take us behind the scenes. What's likely happening right now, whether it be at the FBI, CIA, counterintelligence, DHS, you name it?
Well, one of the most important things they're trying to figure out is, did this guy have any accomplices? Did he work with others? Was he trained? Was he provided money? Did he have a broader network here in the United States to provide support to this attack? Because if there's a broader network, those people could also be threats and on the verge of committing another attack. You're also going to look at international ties. What are his communications with people overseas? Did he have any travels to overseas destinations where he might have been radicalized, where he might have been trained?
And what about, generally speaking, going forward here? Because as we watch events unfold in the Middle East, we've been told for years, I go back to Christopher Wray testifying, the old FBI director back in 2020, 5 years ago, saying lone wolves were his biggest worry at the time. So what's going on behind the scenes right now as law enforcement obviously sees what's going on across the globe and tries to keep our homeland secure and safe?
Yeah, lone wolves like what Texas appears to be are a major problem, but we've also got to keep our eyes on the threat of Iran-backed terrorists. So Hezbollah, which is the crown jewel in Iran's worldwide global terror network, has had 128 operatives arrested in the United States between the late 1990s and 2020. 128.
Okay. So that's a handful a year over time.
It's not a small number. And so we have to wonder how many other Hezbollah operatives are here in our country right now. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's probably not 0. And keep in mind, for Hezbollah, as the tip of the spear for Iran, this war is existential for them. If the Iranian Islamic Republic goes away, Hezbollah goes away in a meaningful sense. So there's no reason for them to hold back at this point.
Qasem Soleimani was the former Revolutionary Guard leader that was taken out in the first Trump term, and Iran has been trying to avenge his death since. Now that the Ayatollah has been eliminated, what's your big worry from a lone wolf retaliatory response threat potentially?
Yeah, well, there's an irony here, right? So after President Trump eliminated the world's worst terrorist, Qasem Soleimani, the Islamic Republic said, "All right, we're putting a death sentence on President Trump." Right. Looks like President Trump got there first, as he said earlier.
That's what he said. Yeah, I got there before he did.
He got there before he did. Yeah. So we have to be really vigilant, and this is not a time for Congress to be playing partisan politics with DHS funding. doing. Like, DHS is the front lines. They control the borders. They control interior enforcement. They're in charge of Secret Service. We're in the middle of a war, and we don't want these officers to be working for free while Congress tries to sort out partisan political differences. So it's time for Congress to step up and fund DHS.
Nathan Sales, thank you, sir.
Great to be here.
Again soon. Appreciate it. All right,
Thanks.
by the way, since the Iranian regime came into power in '79, Iran has conducted terrorist plots, assassinations, and attacks in more than 20 different nations worldwide. Well, new video shows explosions rocking parts of Tehran. As the White House says, the fight against Iran will go on as long as necessary. There is new video left side of your screen coming into News Nation. I'm going to play that for you in full on the other side when we return.
The president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this.
All right, just some of the sounds over Tehran tonight. Explosions. News Nation exclusive video there on Operation Epic Fury that continues in the Middle East. The Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying today that operations in Iran will not result in a drawn-out war. But the president said the U.S. is prepared to handle a long mission if needed. Tens of thousands of U.S. troops are deployed across the region tonight. They are joined right now by an armada of firepower, including 2 aircraft carrier strike groups. In the first 48 hours of Operation Epic Fury, the military says more than 1,200 targets were struck. And they continue. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, back from sort of the region, just got back in with me now here tonight on the Hill. Nice to see you, sir. Where do you think we are this evening?
You know, I'm impressed. Someone who's planned a lot of these operations. I think they very aggressively staked out, along with Israel, in a combined, 900 targets the first night.
Right.
I think it's probably slightly less than that each sequential night, but still a very thick attack posture here. And we're shifting from kind of a mix of air and ground and naval to probably mostly air, delivered by the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Naval Air, and the Israeli Air Force.
How significant was it sinking those 11 Iranian naval ships?
I'm glad they sank them. I was there 40 years ago when we sank a few, and there's some bad captains on those ships. I hope they're on board when they were hit. Having said that, that's not how they're going to mine the Straits of Hormuz. They use other techniques for that. So this is a good hit, but it doesn't solve the problem.
You talk about the Strait. Let me show you, or you know this, but for our audience here on News Nation or those listening to us on Sirius XM, do we have it up here? We have it? Nope. Okay. Oh, there we go. So let me, Frank, come on over here. So this is the Strait of Hormuz, and here's why I'm showing it to you. About 25% of the world's oil travels through here, and you see this huge pocket here? There's no travel there, Admiral, and this is what the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said a little while ago.
This terroristic regime, led by radical clerics, has the ability, potentially, to shut off 20% of global energy. That's the kind of leverage they have because of their Navy. We're going to destroy their Navy.
So how significant is sort of that image that we just showed?
That grabs it, right? There's a very small throat there to go through, 12 miles on either side between Oman and Iran, and the Iranians can shut that down by just using nondescript ships dumping mines into that water. At some point, the what's called the Joint War Council in London will say it's unsafe for ships to pass through. At that point, shipping will stop. Legal shipping will stop, and it'll have a serious impact on Kuwait, UAE, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and most of all, Iran, and their ability to ship fossil fuels out to the world. And the number one recipient, China.
The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, started it off today, then President Trump, and then Marco Rubio up on the Hill. That was some of the cadence. The argument that is being laid out by the administration is that this is not going to be a quote-unquote forever war, that this is going to be days into weeks, maybe 4 to 5 weeks. Here was Hegseth.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president.
So on this time frame of 4 to 5 weeks that the president said that this could take, you heard Hegseth there say this is not an endless war, essentially. Given where we are tonight, a few nights into it, and more than 1,200 targets struck, but the president saying the biggest wave is yet to come, what do you expect here in these upcoming hours?
So I do think, 4 to 5 weeks is about right. And I do think we're going to continue this strong, 300 to 400 strikes by us, 200 to 300 by the Israelis every night or every day of 24-hour period. That's a significant amount of strikes.
For how long of that?
I think that goes on for about 2 to 3 weeks of it. Then you're doing battle damage assessment to determine what do we need to restrike in there. And you go on. The problem with all this is we do not have an armed resistance on the ground. So at the end of 4 weeks, we have destroyed their ability to develop and launch missiles and drones. We haven't necessarily accomplished a change in regime.
And then that's sort of the what comes next on the ground there.
That's correct.
All right. Mark Montgomery, retired admiral. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it. All right, still to come here on News Nation. Elizabeth Vargas reports is next. She will speak with Congressman Rick Crawford. He is a gentleman in the middle of all this because he is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He was in that briefing today. There's been a whole lot of talk about it. It was 8 of the biggest lawmakers in Washington. They go in a room, they get briefed by Marco Rubio, and when you listen to it afterwards, a couple different stories, I guess, depending on what side of the aisle you may or may not be on from those lawmakers. The congressman with Elizabeth here in moments. I thank you so much for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow. I leave you with a live look there. Tel Aviv, Israel tonight. We started the hour with Robert Sherman reporting that he heard sirens there across the Middle East. We had strikes from Israel in Beirut, drones in Kuwait. Eyes on the Middle East here on News Nation.